time that at this moment we don't have a government in Islamabad, and this is quite astounding. We are going to talk about all these matters, and then we are going to talk about the politics of shifting alliances, who was the beneficiary of the decision, what comes next, especially when you talk about a similar kind of case pending in the Supreme Court against the one of the leading lights of the opposition. That is Imran Khan Sahab. We are going to talk about all these matters, and in order to help us understand, we have an eminent panel. We have with us Javed Sadiq Sahab, a senior journalist and hosts his own program, as well as an analyst, a columnist and editor. Thank you very much, Javed Sadiq Sahab, for being part of the program. Next to him is Barrister Yasir Hamdani. I'm using barrister as a force of habit, but he is a senior lawyer and writes also. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Khayyam Mashir Saab, one of not only a friend but also columnist, analyst as well. You have seen him in this program in the past as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Khayyam Saab, for your time. Javed Sadiq Saab, I have to start with you. And I have to actually first of all reflect on this dilemma that if a sitting Prime Minister is deposed, we don't have any measure to ensure that somebody is there in Prime Minister's office to conduct the business of government.
I think this has happened first time. The Prime Minister has been disqualified by the Apex Court of Pakistan.
Yusuf Raza Gilani also?
But immediately, Raja Parvez Ashraf was elected as his successor. So there was no gap as such. You know, you are mentioning these days, which are without a Prime Minister.
Right.
So, I mean, what are the legal connotations, legal ramifications of this? I'm not aware of it. But the fact that this has happened first time in Pakistan history. In previous years, when the President used to dissolve the Assembly under Article 58(2)(b), he would immediately appoint an interim Prime Minister.
Right.
And an interim cabinet as well. But this is a new experience in Pakistan's history that the Supreme Court has disqualified a sitting Prime Minister. He's no more there. And it was a shock rather for the Prime Minister and his cabinet as well. They were not expecting this kind of decision.
Right.
And no arrangement was made for the successor.
Are you sure about that? Because if you remember back then, we had quite a few discussions in this program, and you were certain. Most of my participants were certain that this is going to happen. But with due respect, who do you think is responsible for this gap in governance right now?
I think some constitutional arrangement must be there, that if there is no Prime Minister, even for a few hours, then what is the next arrangement, the legal constitutional arrangement to run the government?
Right.
But there doesn't seem to be, probably a situation was not contemplated in the scheme of the Constitution, that if a sitting Prime Minister is disqualified by the court, what will happen next? Who is going to succeed him?
Right. Yasir Hamdani, your take on this, especially from a legal point of view?
Well, the convention is that the Speaker of the House should take over.
Okay.
But there isn't any clear-cut indication in the Constitution.
Convention? In the past, we have seen recently when the Prime Minister went for his surgery, former Prime Minister went for his surgery, we didn't have a Prime Minister for quite some time.
We didn't have a Prime Minister, but that is unfortunate. I think this is why in certain constitutions of the world you have the office of a Deputy Prime Minister who acts as a replacement in the event.
But Deputy Prime Minister will be voted through the same process as the Prime Minister. And the moment Cabinet goes, the Deputy Prime Minister will also go?
Well, that's the question. I think that that is something that the Constitution needs to, or the Constitution framers of the Constitution or the makers of the Constitution have to figure out. They haven't figured out what that role is. So at the moment we are in limbo, where I suppose the authority flows from the President at the moment.
Right.
That is what we are.
He is the Foreign Minister, he is the Finance Minister, he is everything. He is the government of Pakistan despite being head of the state.
Despite being the head of the state. And it is an extraordinary situation we find ourselves in.
And why do you think it happened? I'm asking this because had it been the case in India, I would have understood. There you don't have that kind of tumultuous politics. In Pakistan, you have had too many prime ministers sent home not through democratic process. And we know that he's the 15th Prime Minister who has been sent back home, and none of the Prime Ministers has actually, completed his term in office.
Well, I think the framers of the constitution and the sort of the parliamentary government that was envisaged under our constitution, we did not expect that there would be another institution which would sit in judgment over. So another part of the government, another branch of the government sitting in judgment. I mean, that's what separation of powers is. Essentially, what should happen is that there should be a vote of no confidence. The Prime Minister goes, and then the next Prime Minister comes in once a new vote of confidence is taken within the House. So that is usually how it is supposed to be. Unfortunately, our framers did not, and I don't blame them, because I don't think they envisaged that the Supreme Court would at some point use its extraordinary jurisdiction under 184(3) and send the Prime Minister packing.
Yeah, but we are talking about framers of constitution as if the work of amending or creating the constitution ended in 1971. It has continued, and we know what happened after that. Khayyam Mushir, this lacuna, this vacuum that you see around yourself, can this be amended?
I think, Farooq, you've rightly pointed out that there is a vacuum at the moment. It is unfortunate that we are having to pass this time. But I think that I would rather, focus on something else, and that is that, well, there is going to be a Prime Minister elected soon, and we need to focus on a larger question on what this bodes for democracy in this country.
Yeah, we are going to focus on that as well.
Yeah.
My question is pertinent at this moment because I worry that there can be, even when there is a vote of no confidence, even at that time, somebody has to be the Prime Minister, somebody has to be the Chief of Executive. At this moment, our executive branch is totally out in water, with totally rudderless. At least this seems to me. I know that everything is functioning. We are sitting here, we are doing our job. Everybody is. But we don't have a head or chief executive at this moment. So shouldn't that be taken care of immediately?
Well, in a country like Pakistan, where you said that the politics is tumultuous and is always bordering on chaos, I think that I would just simply say that perhaps the framers of the constitution or the powers that be have bigger fish to fry right now than worry about this. But yes, you're right, there is a vacuum, it exists, and we can only hope that such vacuums do not endure. And perhaps
are you saying that framers of constitution have been replaced by framers of politicians?
I don't think that I really reserve the right to pass judgment on that, but certainly that is the perception that we pass off across not only within the country but outside of it.
Right. Okay, taking a cue from what you suggested, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow? Do you think it will be a smooth sail for the government or the ruling party?
I can tell you that I think it is in the interest of this country that it should be smooth sailing. Already what has happened is provided so much grist for the rumor mills in this country that anybody who is everybody has an opinion on what may or may not happen. What I think should happen is that we should make a smooth transition and allow this government to complete its 10 months without further shocks, without further fanfare, without
I
further
assure you that is not going to happen.
dharnas.
You have listened to Imran Khan yesterday, and things are not going to change that quickly unless we have a miracle.
Well, we
miracle in the shape of change of heart. But by the way, I have to bring in, I have to go back to Javed Sadiq Saab. Javed Sadiq Saab, number-wise, do you think that the government is safe tomorrow? The ruling party is safe tomorrow?
Certainly, government is very comfortable, in a very comfortable position, and their nominee for the Prime Minister's slot, Shahid Khaqan Abbasi, is going to be elected with overwhelming majority. Some people, some parliamentarians are claiming that he may get 2/3 majority tomorrow. So there's no problem.
Numbers actually don't add up that way.
No. But you see,
they need 172, they have 188 right now.
88, but they can manage the number. So, some of them are claiming that he may get 2/3 majority, but certainly he is going to be elected without any disruption, without any surprise.
And there was also a claim yesterday, you must have seen the list as well, I've seen also, a list of 50 plus politicians the claim is that they can create some kind of a forward block in the party. You don't think so?
This is what we are hearing for quite some time. You know, even during Nawaz Sharif's own period when he was Prime Minister, we were hearing from his detractors that there are 50. In fact, some were claiming that there were 60 or 70 dissidents within the ruling party, and they could part ways with the ruling party any day. And that didn't happen. But I think even now, when tomorrow there's going to be election for the new Prime Minister, there'll be no problem for them.
And we are going to talk about, as we move forward, we are going to talk about
the parliamentary party meeting, which was held under Nawaz Sharif. You know, there were over 190 members who attended this party, and ample proof that they are not suffering from any defections.
No defections are going to take place. Yasir Hamdani, you are not only a lawyer, you are also a political commentator. I've read your columns, I really enjoy them. Your take on the situation at this moment. Tell me, is defection even a possibility in this scenario?
Well,
floor crossing is a possibility now, legally?
No, legally it's not a possibility.
Okay.
There is a process against floor crossing, and that would be invoked by the party. The party will maintain its discipline.
Party's head invokes that.
Party's head, once that
and
party...
PMLN doesn't have a leader right now.
Doesn't have a head right now. So that was a possible situation where you would have a forward block coming up. However, that forward block hasn't come up. We haven't seen any evidence of it. If anything, the block that was most likely to constitute such a forward block is that section of the party which has become ascendant in form of, you know,
yeah, everybody used to say that the party is divided between hawks and doves, and now the doves are taking over.
Exactly.
First, of course, the Abbasi Sahab, and then you're going to have Shahbaz Sharif
and the Chaudhry Nisar group, and you know, it is entirely going to be a situation which is going to be which is going to lead to reconciliation between the powers that be and PMLN. So I don't see that defection happening. The other thing that has happened is the fact that PTI hastily nominated Mr. Sheikh Rashid as its candidate, and that has caused division between within the opposition's ranks.
Why do you think they nominated him?
I think it's an absolutely whimsical decision. It makes no logical political sense to do so at this time.
Right, but they did so.
They did so.
And
as what PTI always does, unfortunately.
Could it be some kind of message?
There
Sheikh Rashid was the one who invoked Article 62-63.
Right.
And there's a possibility that we are being told that people like them are better than anybody else.
Right, and that is an extraordinary proposition if you think about it, given Sheikh Rashid's colourful past.
Yeah,
it is,
and his colourful statements as well.
Colourful statements and the way he conducts himself. It's an extraordinary situation where we have this, and this is going to hurt the PTI. With its serious voter and the people who talk about accountability and the people who are ideologically affiliated to PTI in a way that they feel that PTI represents change. Here's a person who was almost abused on television by the party leader. So it is such an extraordinary situation that you would have the same person being nominated as the PM's candidate. Adversity makes for strange bedfellows.
A man from one man party actually being suggested or nominated as Prime Minister, a real candidate. Khayyam, your take on this?
Well, I think that it smacks of great political immaturity. I think that at this point in time, with the mood in the country, you would have put your best foot forward. So you should have nominated somebody who could at least proverbiably pass the test of Sadiq and Amin. You're actually putting somebody...
Why do you think that he doesn't pass that?
I mean, you know, test? I mean, I wouldn't hasten to pass judgment on the man, but I mean, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of clouds that hang over his reputation as well.
Really? So nobody has challenged him yet?
Of course they haven't. But the thing is that you would still want to, at least for spectacle, and that is all that politics counts for these days, at least for the spectacle you would have put somebody else forward. So I think
if you deconstruct the strategy, do you see any strategy or method to madness here?
Well, it baffles me completely. So I don't see that there is any method to this madness.
Right.
And I can only think of it as a joke, but, you know, we only stay to remain surprised in Pakistan.
So you're saying that your compass actually starts whirring around
Absolutely.
without any sense of direction.
It goes haywire, totally.
Right, it goes haywire. So your take on Sheikh Rashid?
Sheikh Rashid, I think Imran Khan nominated him because he thinks that his contribution has been monumental.
In undermining democracy?
Not only, not undermining, but in fact, in the ouster of Nawaz Sharif.
Right.
Because he went with a petition to the Supreme Court. And in the public meetings, he was lashing on Mr. Nawaz Sharif.
But the irony, if you remember, 3 years ago, he was standing in front of Parliament along with Imran Khan and encouraging people to attack it. The same man is now actually nominated as head of the
if you go into
National
that,
Assembly.
if you go into that, then he has so many vulnerabilities, Mr. Sheikh Rashid, you know, as a member of the Parliament. The Article 62 and 63, if ever they are applied, then Sheikh Rashid is the fittest person to apply 62, 63.
Okay, I don't want to go there, but regarding
you see,
other things.
I'm talking of the perspective of Imran Khan, the prism through which he has seen Sheikh Rashid is that he has been in the forefront in the fight to oust Nawaz Sharif from power through the
So there is no behind-the-scenes symbolism attached to it?
I don't think so.
The people who undermine democracy shall be rewarded or something
Undermining democracy, or you know, they have taken the legal route or the constitutional route. They went with a petition and Sheikh
Today?
Rashids.
No, today yes, but 4 years ago no.
Of course.
At that time they were attacking
then
the Parliament.
methodology was different. Then the strategy was different. Then they were using the popular politics. They were on the streets. They were using the agitational method of changing the government.
I
You
have to
asked
go to him
about
and then I'll come back.
method
to
behind madness. You know what? The only thing that the math tells us right now is that this is coming on the tide of a huge emotional victory against, of course, the
Emotional
PMLN.
victory.
Well, it's an emotional victory as well, isn't it? There's a 2-year-long struggle. It has finally ended with the Prime Minister being sent home, and this may well have been just a last-minute, you know, gratuitous kind of a decision. It doesn't seem to reflect any symbolism. It doesn't seem to reflect any logic whatsoever.
It's not a thought out
It's
decision.
not a thought-out decision.
He
I think
clearly
it
calls
probably-
himself a Pindi boy. In fact, you have to know what he is actually trying to market himself as.
I think what we try to always at least hope is that all these political parties, the untested and the tried, have some level and modicum of maturity and some careful analytic thinking in the background.
Yeah,
At this moment, I can't think of anything
And
that suggests that.
Yasir Ramdani, I'm going to come back to you, but I have one question that you actually raised. Sir, the fact that Sheikh Rashid was nominated has fractured the opposition. Now, today People's Party is not going to support his candidature. Don't you think it is a very bad strategy?
It is, because, you know, undoubtedly his nomination has created division within the ranks of the opposition.
He's the man who used to distort names
Not only
of
that,
People's Party leaders,
but
including
actually,
Bilawal.
actually, when he was a member of the National Assembly, when he was minister in 90s, and we used to cover the parliament, and he used to literally abuse Benazir Bhutto.
I know.
You know that.
Yeah.
And he used to use very indecent, indecorous language against the lady. And the People's Party will never forget, particularly Mr. Zardari and Bilawal and the family, that he has been so, nasty about them and their mother. So therefore, I think they have.
Yeah, but Bilawal met him twice. And it
course.
was acknowledged, and they
Of course,
had some kind of
in
reconciliation.
politics, you know, everything is possible. But I think that PPP doesn't like him, and they will never vote for
It
him.
is only about that. Yasir Ramdani, it is not about number game. Maybe today he becomes the opposition's candidate for premiership. Tomorrow he can ask for the leader of opposition post. Is it not true?
He can, and that's obviously if you're going to have a leader of the house, and then the other person who's lost has a claim to being the leader of the opposition. Though in this case, the leader of the opposition is already certified, and that's Mr. Khurshid Shah.
Right.
I think this idea of putting up someone for Prime Minister's position, regardless of the fact that that person is not going to win, is such a huge honor generally. And to give it to a person like that, I think it smacks of it smacks of the general indecency that has found its way in the PTI discourse.
Okay.
Because you
But
heard
somebody would say, if you're talking about indecency, it belongs in every camp. Everybody
does,
has
absolutely.
somebody who uses this kind of language.
absolutely,
And methods as well.
these people should, those who use unparliamentary language, those who use language that is unbecoming of political office, they should be the ones who should be kept out of the, this is where 62 and 63 should really be applied, in my opinion.
You think that 62 and 63 should be kept in the Constitution?
Well, no. The fact of the matter is that it should not be. There are parts of it which are completely untenable with the idea of politics and democracy. But that's a different debate. As long as we have them, why is a person like this being brought forth? That's my
Right,
question.
that is a big question. Of course, we are going to talk about People's Party's candidate as well, but Khayyam Mushir, on one side you have Shahid Khaqan Abbasi's name. Ask anybody. He is thought to be one of the mildest, kindest and soft-spoken
Uncontroversial as
people.
well.
Yeah, soft-spoken people, decent man. On the other side, it is not. These are not my words. The words that have been used right now for Sheikh Rashid Ahmed. Do you think that there is some message coming from PMLN and the other side as well?
Well, I mean, if it's some kind of scare tactics that we are pushing our biggest bully forward, I don't know if that really works. I wonder if it is that actually. I don't think it is. But we talked about the indecency that has permeated Parliament. I think that if you look at the entire campaign of PTI versus PMLN, both camps, all camps, what is happening right now is that your biggest manufacturing of consent takes place through social media. Now you know very well what kind of campaign has been run. Okay. The complete caricaturing of a prime minister, the very shoddy kind of allegations.
Yeah, but you're talking about things that are new.
They're new,
I'm concerned about things that have been there for quite some
Within
time.
the
For example, media
Parliament.
itself. The Parliament, media, and the lawyer community as well. Everybody is actually using abusive language
But
everywhere.
I think it's almost come down to the fact that there is no point in winning power in this country through any set democratic means. Parliament is boring. What we should do is try and grab as much public attention as we can by creating a hue and cry and by maligning people and through slander.
Do you honestly think that Parliament, if it is considered publicly considered boring, the politicians have not contributed to it? This is a big question because the former Prime Minister hardly went to the Parliament.
Yeah, but I think still, if it is boring or insipid, we have to abide by the parliamentary norms.
No, sir, but you have to understand what I'm talking about.
I
In
understand
what
it.
world a judicial case or JIT's coverage is more interesting than a parliament that makes your laws?
Obviously, when the conspiracies used to be engineered by opposition against the sitting government back in 90s, when Article 52B was still the part of the Constitution, and the president used to use it as a tool to dissolve the government and dismiss, to dissolve the assemblies and dismiss the government. In those days, what was happening outside Parliament, the conspiracies and the meetings which were taking place in Lahore and Islamabad, in Changamanga, in Murree, they were more interesting, and people were focusing and concentrating more on these meetings than in the Parliament.
Yeah.
So that's an aspect of democratic system in Pakistan. So therefore, the JIT and other activities that were going on, and the hearing of the Supreme Court itself was a great fun for the media, and the media was focused on that.
That would be not because Supreme Court was saying something different. Supreme Court was doing its job, but every anchor wanted to be a judge himself on his own program.
And outside the Supreme Court, both PMLN and the PTI and their spokespersons or spokesmen, they used to clash on the TV cameras, And that was very interesting for the public. And you know, the public used to enjoy it. They used to wait for these spokesmen to come out and tell
Why
the
would
people.
that be?
I think
Is it some kind of indication that we are generally going to the dogs and
no,
civilization has lost its
you know,
touch?
our people are that way. You know, there's a tendency in our people. We like conspiracy theories. We like something juicy that we get through
Like
the media.
juicy like a road accident maybe?
No. But
When
you know,
people gather
the
and
talk
drink help.
shows. The talk shows are very juicy. I mean, they're very interesting. And the language that is used in these talk shows in the private media, you know, that actually riveted the attention of the audience or the viewership.
Right.
So, you know, that's happening.
Right.
But you know, I just want to add to that comment as well that it's not just what our people are used to. Media cultivates habits, and the media in this country has cultivated the habit of this constant, useless, facile debate without substance. This constant pitting of one person against another, zero-sum politics waged every day on television. And
But
the
it used
GIT
to happen
coverage-
even Bhutto's time.
Right.
When the PNA was on the roads, the people were interested more in these, you know, meetings and the
but that's
rallies, etc. And the focus was then on BBC, Mark Talley's reporting.
Right.
As what was
But that was reporting. We are talking about a totally different kind of culture where people are fighting, and you are saying that it was deliberately
And I think-
cultivated.
I think it's been deliberately cultivated over the last many years.
By whom?
And I think that
By whom?
By the media itself, and of course there are you know, actors behind the scenes. One can't really come out and name anybody without any proof. But the thing is that so much goes around that is discussed and is believed and assumed in Pakistani politics. What I'd also like to say
As
is that
we are
around-
also assuming at this moment.
I wonder.
The actors you cannot name, right?
Well, possibly. But the thing is that even look at the JIT. In the culmination of that final judgment, the hue and cry were certainly not balanced. It was not the
Hue and
Supreme
cry-
Court.
who's
The
the
hue and cry that was waged on the media around it. The constant pressuring to announce some kind of a verdict, which if you had looked at any number of media channels, there was almost a desire to pronounce the Prime Minister guilty.
Okay. So we have a lawyer here, and let us ask him. Was there a pressure on the Honorable Court, or for that matter, JIT?
Well, I
and
think-
should there be?
I think with Imran Khan coming out and saying a couple of days before that the verdict was announced, asking the Supreme Court to announce the verdict quickly so that this nation can get on with the business. I think that is the kind of pressure that was built on the Supreme Court, and the way they've used the 184.3 and then come down to a very narrow definition of an accounting principle, that too taken from Black's Law Dictionary and not anything from positive law in Pakistan.
Because we didn't have any law.
That shows that they were they'd already. I don't want to say anything that
Yeah,
would
but
become
what you're
contemptuous.
saying is there was pressure, and the concern I have is the muse of justice that we see is wears actually blindfolds, and then she's also carrying something to weigh. Why would it be that somebody can actually influence any kind of judgment?
Well, I won't go that far and say that the judges were influenced, but I definitely.
No, somebody tried to, right? And you're
Well,
saying that
people
there was
did.
pressure.
There was pressure. They're human beings. Obviously,
I know.
they
I
exist in the same.
respect them. I've constantly said that I trust them with my life.
Of
you want to
course,
say
and we have to, because that is the apex court.
Right.
And of course, you can shed light on this, but there has been a lot said about the previous legal precedents that have been set in the case of determining whether somebody is disqualified or qualified from contesting elections.
Okay.
In the previous cases, the apex court has come out and said, or the courts have come out and said, that if the non-disclosure of a fact is not deemed to be material, then a disqualification need not take place. Now, we're talking about a 10,000 dirham receivable.
Right.
Surely, in the entire way the whole Panama case was structured, this is surely not material.
Right.
And this is now
No,
something
but you have to realize that it is actually primarily politicians' own fault. They could have removed Article
Absolutely.
262, 63.
Absolutely. And
they could
Nawaz
have
Sharif Saab
improved
opposed
upon
it.
the law, the
Yes.
accountability law. They didn't.
True. Or they could have actually, well, I mean, a lot could have been done to make this easier for themselves, which they did not.
Right.
We agree. But what I'm saying is that the judgment of the Supreme Court simply says that on all other counts where an accusation was leveled against the principal respondents, the evidence is prima facie triable. That is where it ends.
Okay.
And so therefore it has to be tried in a court of law. Without any objective evidence, there is nothing to convict them.
A trial court, yes.
A trial court.
Yeah.
They have sent it, the case to a trial court as
It's
Yes,
well.
now
and
going
then-
to be in the trial court.
Then after that determination, that all the allegations that were made, including all the forgery and the perjury allegations that were made, to come down and come to what he's rightly pointed out was an
Technical matter.
immaterial, a technical matter. It was a
But it was a technical matter and it was an unresolved issue. So they could actually decide on that. So you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to add just that, you know, the Pakistani media, specifically the electronic media, remained divided throughout this hearing of the Supreme Court.
How come divided?
There-
There was
there-
only
there
one
were-
channel,
No, no, no,
or
there-
at least two, ours included,
No.
that
If-
were
if you-
accused of siding with the government.
If you look at the channels, if you had watched them during this entire period, you would conclude that there were channels who were opposing the government, and they were in favor of, you know, Supreme Court giving a verdict against Nawaz Sharif. You know, they were giving that kind of sense to
I
the
know.
people.
I've
you know
seen
that.
some programs which were very abusive as well.
So abusive. So I
But
think
that
the
was the
media,
majority.
the division between media also created a lot of you know, excitement among the viewers, and they would just switch on the TV. And you know, these days, during particularly these few weeks that we have seen this process being, the legal battle being fought there, they would just switch on the TV, one TV which is pitched against the other one. You know, one TV is telling you a story, a spin on the story. The other one is supporting the government. So, you know, a lot of interest was created.
So, with due respect, apart from PTV, of course, it is the state channel, but people think
The other-
it is
the other-
government channel.
I'm talking of private TV channels.
There's only one private channel that was accused by Imran Khan of running a campaign in support of PMLN. And the problem with that channel is, even if you look at their coverage today, you realize that they are defending nobody but themselves. Especially what happened in the case of Prime Minister
You are-
AJK.
The channel, the channel that you are talking about is not the only one. There were other channels as well. If you had watched them, they were pro-government,
Right.
and they were running the line that Nawaz Sharif is an innocent person. He is being implicated into this case.
In the course of this program, I'm not going to ask you to name them, but after this program, I'm going to ask their
Right,
names.
okay.
Because I've been following television as well, very closely.
I can share those names.
Yeah, I will ask you about that. But regarding the future of democracy, Yasir Hamdani, do you think that we are making progress at this moment?
Not after, and I'm sorry to say this, I'm an officer of the court, and I have all the respect for the Supreme Court and the superior judiciary. However, after this judgment, I feel this has been a huge step backward. What we've done with this is that we've gone back to the sort of the hybrid state category, where you have unelected institutions sitting in judgment over an elected institution. What we've done with respect to the Prime Minister, the very fact that there hasn't been a single Prime Minister in our history who has completed his term, that is a damning statement.
It is.
And
But
that
we are only 70 years old. We are not 500 years old.
well, we're only 70 years old, but the fact of the matter is we have to start somewhere, and the Prime Minister needs to fight back, in my opinion, the former
but
Prime Minister.
You're saying that it is a step backward.
It is a step backward.
Somebody would, just for the sake of argument, say that this was the exact state of affairs throughout 70 years, and we were not maybe looking at it that way. All optimists were trying to actually convince themselves that something has changed. I'm coming to you in a second.
Yes, and but the very fact that we had an assembly that completed its tenure without having a dictator sitting on top, and now we were expecting that the Prime Minister would actually complete his tenure, and this was perhaps we were too optimistic. Perhaps we should have known after Dharna 1 that that is not the case, that ultimately power resides
do you
elsewhere.
realize there's another reason to it as well? This Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, had a lot of baggage as well. You'll remember that too.
He did, and
I like the man, but
I think
frankly, we have a very tumultuous history, and he had a baggage.
he had a baggage, and he was speaking fairly, Imran Khan is roughly where he was 20 years ago.
Right.
And that is how it is. I am not.
So that actually proves my point.
Right.
That somebody, one individual or the other, might evolve, but somebody actually is ready to fill his shoes.
Absolutely. And somebody has to stop that door. Somebody has to make sure that then whatever public mandate, whatever it is, I don't care what the mandate is. I didn't vote for Mr. Nawaz Sharif, but the public mandate should by all means be the ultimate determinant and arbiter of our future.
You were saying something.
We continue to operate in this gray area between democracy and dictatorship, and that's pretty much all that we have been allowed to do.
Right.
The breathing space that we got was because 58(2)(b) was slashed. That's what allowed a democratic transition of power into this one.
Right.
We can only
but
hope.
Just to remind you that an assembly under the last dictator we had completed its term, 5 years, despite the
It was
presence
under
of
a dictator.
58(2)(b).
It was under a dictator.
Yeah, but still
we
it
want
was.
to what we
The
want
first assembly
what
to do
needs
so.
to be decided in this country, Farooq, I think is, and what he's pointed out is that is the people's mandate important or not?
Okay.
Because the elite interests of this country want to say that until the people have a grade point average of 4, they shouldn't be allowed to vote.
Yeah, but
I don't think that decision can be taken by the people who sit in the power corridors in this country.
Right.
You have a mass of people, as uneducated as they are, let them vote for whoever they feel they must elect. And then if that person fails, let them vote them out.
I totally believe or agree with whatever you're saying. But here's the problem. The people who are actually arguing against this kind of an idea.
So the elite interests of this country.
actually tell you something very different. And they tell you that all over the world, the project of democracy has been affected, right from America to Europe and India and God knows where else.
But nowhere else in the world is there any push to really abort it. And that's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping, that in this country also it continues. We get a prime minister tomorrow, we complete the 10 months, we go to general elections, we vote in somebody else if they are fit to lead this country.
Yeah.
The problem is...
And somehow if somebody accused of some crimes is elected, you cannot sack him?
If they're accused of crimes, then let due process be followed.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
I
was
think
it
here
not
And
due
it
process?
wasn't due
due
process.
process has been followed here.
Yeah.
This is a bizarre argument.
He doesn't agree.
He may not. He may
I'll
not.
come to you.
You know,
Yeah,
he
sir.
may not agree.
Yeah.
But I have been hearing this bizarre argument that if somebody, I mean, prime ministers and presidents all over the world in democratic dispensations have been sent packing, or they were disqualified, or even imprisoned. The former prime minister of Israel is now in prison because of embezzlement.
No, he has been freed.
Okay,
Yeah.
but he
Recently
has
freed.
been. He has been. So therefore, I think the Supreme Court or the judiciary itself is a part of this larger democracy. And there are other institutions of accountability in the parliamentary system. The Public Account Committee, although it is not effective, not very efficacious, not delivering, but the institutions which are built by the democratic project, as you have said, for the accountability of politicians or the elected representatives, they have to function.
Right.
If they don't, then there will be
That's
huge
true.
discontent among the voters, and they will be
that is going
disenchanted.
to happen. But sir, state has power, raw power, and usually when it shares it, it is some sort of compromise or concession. It is thought historically. We have seen what happened in UK, elsewhere. The problem is that we expect the state to share the power as much as possible, but we don't go an extra mile to reach the spot where we have to actually meet them halfway. The problem at this moment is whenever there is corruption issue, you see frivolous petitions all over the country, but you don't see the appropriate kind of push to highlight it.
At the election commission, if you go to the election tribunal, so many petitions are there, and they are not decided as long as the assembly member who is elected and who has been accused of indulging in corruption, no decision comes out against him or in favor of him.
That is true.
You see,
but how many civil society organizations do we have which go into litigation, pushing the boundaries every single day to get maximum relief for the people?
There are not many, and that is a problem. But let me come back to the question of due process. It's not due process if you're going to bypass the constitutional prescription, which is given in the Constitution in 62 and 63. The 63 article, if you read it carefully, it talks about the Election Commission taking cognizance after the matter has been referred to the Speaker. If the Speaker doesn't act, the Election Commission takes cognizance of it anyway. That is an alternate remedy. In the presence of that, for Supreme Court to directly go into its 184(3) jurisdiction, which is without appeal, is not due process.
The Prime Minister himself agreed to that.
Well, and that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
Volunteered that I am ready to.
If the court doesn't have jurisdiction, it doesn't matter if people subject themselves to jurisdiction. If they've given into that jurisdiction, it doesn't matter. The court had to decide this question.
It is very insightful debate, but I'm afraid it will have to continue another time. I'm told that we have run short of time. 1 minute is left. Conclusion, please go ahead.
The conclusion is that unfortunately we are standing at a point where we are just hoping that there is not more political chaos and not more political turmoil in this country. Because after all, we are not going through the best of times, not regionally, not internationally, not internally. So we can just only hope that there is more stability.
Your conclusion, sir?
I think we are passing through a very interesting period of our history, and we are learning. And I believe that with these lessons, the democracy will become more mature and stabilized in this country.
And democracy has to start from one's own house, and there you have to see democracy in the parties as well. Your conclusion?
Well, I think that there has to come a time where the Prime Minister or the former Prime Minister or any elected leader has to stand up and realize that this is bigger than his person. This is about the right of people, the respect for people's mandate, and that he has to come up with solutions, or the PMLN has to come up with solutions like implementing the Charter of Democracy once and for all.
Right. Let us hope someday that we see that happening as well. Yasir Hamdani, thank you very much for your time. Khayyam Mashir, thank you very much for being here. Javed Siddiq Sahab, thank you very much. It is always great having you in the show as well. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. Of course, this debate is going to continue as long as we are going to have strong institutions in the country. But here's the very important thing. We have to talk about the logical consistency as well. We have seen in the past people comparing the case of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto and Nawaz Sharif, the case of Yusuf Raza Gilani and Nawaz Sharif. But when it comes to a comparison between Imran Khan's case and Nawaz Sharif's case, there somehow they don't agree that there has to be, they are similar. This is the problem. Everybody in this post-truth society is hell-bent on twisting the facts in accordance with their own interests. It is important that we actually stick to known facts and try to build consensus that can take this country forward. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.
The Festival of Lamps, or Mela Chiraga, is a very important and popular event in Pakistan. This is celebrated every spring on the last Friday of March outside the Shalimar Gardens. The show has been described as an eloquent expression of Pakistan's heritage and an authentic account of its agricultural and industrial achievements.
Naman behuda girde, naman behuda girde, poochao bazaar mein gardam.
The Fortress Stadium, the venue of the show, is thronged by active participants, foreign visitors, and people who watch the festival with great enthusiasm, verve, and aplomb. A large number of them are interested in watching and appreciating the best breeds of livestock. Many derive pleasure by watching other activities, such as the display parade of animals, dances by horses and camels, polo matches, tent pegging, dog shows and their races, daring acts of stuntmen, mass display of military band, rhythmical physical exercise by children, tastefully decorated industrial floats, and torchlight tattoo shows. Additional attractions include a subtle interplay of lights to weave enticing patterns at night and breathtaking acts by foreign groups.
Being passionate about life means you choose to get touched by beautiful things in nature. You choose to experience your existence in this moment in time. You choose to dare to live your dreams. Because you are your dreams realized. I've always drawn great inspiration from what George Pinocchio said once. You see things and you say, why? But I dream things that never will. And I say, why not? To be creative means to allow yourself to be inspired, to allow yourself to make mistakes, to allow yourself to be in a continuous dialogue with your imagination. I believe what you create reflects who you